On this exciting episode, Perry helps out an actor-director in New York. So a show based in Los Angeles can't escape the movie biz even when it goes to the Big Apple? It's the third Perry Mason made-for-TV movie, 1986's The Case of the Shooting Star. Welcome to the Perry Pod. I'm your humble host, Jonathan Searcy. My purpose here is pretty simple: provide an audio companion to the greatest legal drama in television history, Perry Mason. I plan to do a pod for every episode of the television series, and in episodes like this one, I'll take a look at some of those made-for-TV movies too. Each episode, I give a brief refresher of the plot, list some key pieces of trivia, and tackle the episode or movie's main theme. Then I feature a Perry Proverb, a moment of wisdom from the man himself, and finish with a post-case water cooler where, just like Perry, Della, and Paul, we can rehash the ins and outs of their adventures. But first, to the law library. Each episode in the law library, we return to prior cases to refresh our memories about Perry's past so we can find fresh precedents for future cases. In this visit to the library, we take a look at, well, law libraries. Perry's doing some fundraising. Tell us more about it, Perry.
How important our law library is. And if you think I've invited you here tonight to put undue pressure on you for a contribution, you're right.
In just one of the many questions left unanswered by this movie, we never learn whether or not Perry got the cash necessary to make the law library a thing. And by the way, where is this law library? In a fancy Manhattan condo? A college somewhere? Somewhere in the courtroom? Who knows? One would guess that the check he's cashing from this case would supply at least a little money toward that library's end. We hope the law library includes a complete set of Earl Stanley Gardner novels, Perry. They're a lawyer's best friend. Now, let's get to the plot of the movie. The Case of the Shooting Star. Robert Mckay is an actor and a director and a possessive boyfriend. After a long day of shooting, he wants to spend some time with his co-star and main squeeze. But apparently, she's not feeling it.
Not here.
Not much I can see.
Back to the hotel about half an hour ago. She wasn't feeling well.
She didn't tell me she wasn't feeling well.
Since when is telling you everything in her contract?
Since when is taking care of her wardrobe in yours?
She forgot some stuff.
She didn't forget, Eric. She just didn't take it with her to wherever it is she really went.
She's at her hotel.
Eric, I can still smell the perfume she had on before she left. Now, where is she?
Who would she rather spend time with? Robert McKay's frenemy, Steve Carr, played by Alan Thicke. And all of a sudden, a heavyweight fight breaks out in the middle of a five-star restaurant.
No wonder they call this the Big Apple. You never know when you're going to run into a big worm.
Well, look who's here.
Come on, let's go.
What do you mean, come on, let's go?
I heard you weren't feeling well, so I'm here to take you home, okay?
Robert.
Look, we're just two old friends having dinner. Come on, sit down, join us.
Oh, you're two friends. That's why you come over and sneak behind my back? Is that why?
I didn't want you to know where I was going because I knew this is how you'd react.
Well, we're getting out of here, and I'm not taking no for an answer. Come on.
Come on. Come on. Hey, I thought you came to New York to play a detective, not a jack.
Don't you have a wife somewhere? Come on.
Come on.
Next thing you know, Mckay is planning a dopey joke. He's going to shoot Carr with some blanks on live TV. Ha ha, hilarious. When he shares this plan, however, with his prop man, he has on his recording mic, so everyone on set ends up hearing what a ridiculous idea it is.
I'm gonna shoot Steve Carr tonight on his show.
You what?
With a blank, Jen. I'm not gonna use real bullets. What do you think? I'm crazy? Look, it's a joke. You follow me? I mean, it's a set-up thing between him and I.
Right there on live TV. Yeah, but look. No, the thing is you
can't tell anybody, right? Because it's a secret, you understand? You follow?
I won't tell if you won't.
Okay, all right. Thanks.
Well, Mckay goes through with it, but since this is Perry, you know the bullets turn out to be real, and Steve Carr finds himself diggity dead.
What's going on? What's the matter with everybody?
Well, someone has just shot Steve Carr.
Yeah, I know I did, as a joke.
A joke?
Yeah, he'll be here any minute. He'll tell you all about it.
I don't think so. He's just been admitted to Lexington General in critical condition.
Perry, meanwhile, turns out to be an old friend of Steve Carr's separated wife. Steve, it seems, is not a very nice guy.
I keep telling myself that it's over, that I should stop fighting it, that he let me go, so I should just let him go. It's just that I don't sleep very well at night. And sometimes on weekends I drink a little bit too much. I don't have an occupation. And I have a husband that sometimes doesn't call me back. Other than that, I'm fine. Really.
I'd like to help.
Perry can't avoid an emotional conflict of interest, though, when an old friend and movie exec asks him to take over Robert Mckay's case. That means he'll be defending someone for a friend for the murder of the husband of another friend, Carr's widow.
How could you do this?
I think he's innocent.
He killed Steve.
He pulled the trigger on the gun, but someone else could have put bullets in the gun.
Of course, Perry gets Paul Drake Jr. in from the West Coast to help him out. Cynical Paul is just like his dad, in that he basically doubts Perry's client is innocent.
Well, I guess we won't be here long. You see an instant replay of the shooting every time you turn on the television set.
Mckay did pull that trigger, but he thought he was firing a blank. It was a joke for the audience.
Some joke.
Only someone switched that blank with a real bullet.
Do we seriously believe this?
We do.
Oh. Who else knew about the joke?
Soon, Paul has joined forces with a tabloid reporter. These two are a regular Cary Grant and Rosalind Russell screwball comedy team.
What did you think? I was some kind of urban gorilla?
I didn't know what you were.
Thank you. A detective is supposed to know these things, isn't he?
How do you know I'm a detective?
Just part of my job. I'm a reporter.
For whom?
Does it matter?
Well, I suppose it was the New York Times, you tell me, right?
Your name is Paul Drake, and you've got a big problem.
What's that?
40 zillion people watched Robert Mckay pull the trigger, and you have to help Perry Mason defend him. Michelle Benty, how do you do?
It turns out the world of movies is filled with backstabbing and people with mixed up emotional reactions. Check out Mckay's on-again, off-again girlfriend's summation of her relationship to him.
He's the possessive type, huh?
He can be a real jerk. But he can also be wonderful. I always swore I would never, ever fall in love with an actor. I guess that pretty much makes me the jerk, doesn't it?
Or Steve Carr's director.
Peter Town. Good. I understand you directed the Steve Carr show.
I used to. Just the way Steve Carr used to be alive. If you're looking to help Mckay, try someplace else.
All right, Superior Court with a subpoena.
Why don't you do that?
Mr. Town, I'm only interested in ascertaining the facts. Even Allison Carr cooperated.
I'll bet she did. Steve's dead. Now Allison and that daughter of hers can get what they've been after all along. His money.
Did Steve tell you that?
Many times. And now I've told you, so your day shouldn't be a total loss.
It seldom is.
Anywho, Perry's doing Zapruder work on footage from the film shoot, hoping to uncover a clue. There's a mulleted actor named Dak running around stealing footage so the defense knows they're on the right track. David Ogden Steers once again plays the prosecutor, and his case seems fairly secure on the surface. But Perry gets the director of Steve Carr's show to admit he knew all about the fake shooting, so he could catch it on camera.
Now, Mr. Town, which one of these 3 cameras was taping Mr. Mckay? How did any one of them anticipate Mr. McKay's entrance? Isn't it true it would be physically impossible for any one of them to swing over in time to catch his unexpected entrance through the curtain?
You see, yes.
Order. Order.
Meanwhile, Paul and his girl Friday capture mulleted Dak, and that leads them to Steve Carr's daughter?
When you showed my mother the picture of my boyfriend Dak, she came to me and I told her everything. Today she's trying to protect me and I can't let her do that. Steve Carr ruined my mother's life. I killed him and I'm not sorry that I did.
Yep, what a sordid tale. Paul ends up getting a date with the reporter by the end of the episode, and it looks like Perry's going to have to defend Steve Carr's daughter because that trial's going to get messy. On that somber note, let's get trivial, shall we? Each episode in our trivia section, I give you 3 takeaways. A Paul is a subject worth investigating more. Adela is something about a particular character in the story. And a Perry is something we learn about our main character. Our Paul for this episode involves the details of duck Burgundy. You remember that dish, don't you?
What did Mr. McKay say to you?
Well, he ordered a cocktail, and then he ordered dinner, the Burgundy duckling.
Your memory is remarkable.
Well, I remember because I told him it would take about a half an hour to prepare.
A half hour? How did Mr. McKay respond?
He said that would be all right and that he was in no hurry.
Our Paul prompt: what's involved with this dish? Why eat it late at night? Why the extra half hour? How much would this thing cost at a Shishi restaurant in the year of our Lord 2021? Give me all your duck Burgundy facts. Our Della for this episode concerns our man with the gavel, Ivan Dixon.
Your points are well taken, gentlemen. Bail will be set at $150,000 with the stipulation that Mr. McKay stay at all times within the municipal boundaries of New York City.
He was no stranger to Perry Mason's world, having appeared in Season 7, Episode 1. That's a 1963 episode called The Case of the Nebulous Nephew. Ivan Nathaniel Dixon III was born in Harlem, growing up on the same block as Ralph Ellison and the Hines brothers, Gregory and Maurice. He attended high school at a black boarding school in Gaston County, North Carolina, and subsequently earned a drama degree from North Carolina Central University. Its theater troupe, now known as the Ivan Dixon Players. Nice tribute. In 1954, the same year Dixon graduated, he married fellow theater student Burley Ray. He later studied drama at Case Western Reserve in Cleveland and then the American Theater Wing in New York City. He appeared on Broadway in 1957 in The Cave Dwellers and then in probably his most famous Broadway part in Lorraine Hansberry's Raisin in the Sun in 1959. He also appeared on a couple of Twilight Zone episodes in the late 50s, and of course the case of the Nebulous nephew in 1963. But of course, you probably know him best. I definitely know him best as James Kinchlow from Hogan's Heroes. He was on the show from 1965 to 1970. Here's the way that Robert Clary, a.k.a. LeBeau, wrote about his co-star in Clary's autobiography. Quote, Ivan Dixon was the most serious person in our cast. He always wondered what he was doing with these crazy hyper people. He was a marvelous actor who, once in a while, was given a part that he could sink his teeth into. He did not renew his contract after the 5th season, even though it was a steady job. He felt he had stayed as long as he could. I think he did the right thing because he became a very good director and was involved in many shows for television, both comedy and drama. He lives in Hawaii and owns a radio station. He seems very happy, which pleases me a lot. Close quote. From 1970 to 1993, as Clary hints, Dixon worked primarily as a television director, directing episodes of The Waltons, The Rockford Files, The Bionic Woman, Magnum P.I., and The A-Team. He also directed a couple movies. This Perry movie was one of Dixon's last acting roles, and after his career as an actor and director, he owned and operated a radio station on Maui. In 2001, he left Hawaii for health reasons. You want more juicy details about our man Ivan? Well, Betty Washington in 2015 wrote a book called The Cliff Dancer, My Love Affair with Ivan Dixon. Here's the book's description, quote, a love affair birthed by fate and tested by the fires of Washington's walk with Christ. It's a battle that forces Washington to choose between her soulmate and her conscience. No, Betty Washington is not Ivan Dixon's wife. Kinch, complex. Dixon had 4 children with his wife, 3 sons and a daughter. Dixon died in 2008 at the age of 76 in Charlotte, North Carolina. His wife died in 2019. Our Perry for this episode involves Perry's law school history.
I ordered some coffee. I could use some. The red eye from LA is starting to get to me.
When we were in law school, you couldn't afford to go to the movies, much less produce them. Sit down.
Thank you.
Apparently, our dude was no Earl Stanley Gardner. Earl Stanley Gardner famously self-taught, only attended law school for a month before he studied on his own for the bar and passed it. Perry went to law school, rubbed shoulders with future Hollywood execs. You know, as one does. It definitely makes one zealous for a good law library. The theme for this movie is jokes. More specifically, unfunny jokes. The entire plot is built around a joke gone wrong. We're told that Steve Carr loves jokes. What a yuck fest. Emphasis on the yuck. Get an absolute load of this abysmal stand-up comedian on Steve Carr's show right before the fatal shooting.
We were so poor, my folks couldn't afford to buy me any shoes. They had to paint my feet black and lace up my toes.
Take 2.
The shock is that this routine doesn't feature the worst planned jokes in the episode. Credit for that goes to the director of Steve Carr's show for these really tasteless funeral jokes offered, quote, in tribute, close quote, to Steve.
Steve Carr was a man like any other man, only richer. He loved life, and now that he's gone, we're all a little bit poorer. In fact, some of us are going to be a lot poorer. But
in an ironic way, these bad jokes are fitting. The whole pull a gun and fire it on live TV is the worst kind of joke. And when it comes out that Carr was a serial harasser of his own stepdaughter, well, justice is no joke, you clown. A final question. Why did Alan Thicke take this thankless role? No screen time, really. Maybe the appeal of punching actor Joe Penny, who played Robert Mckay, in the face was that unavoidable a decision? I'm not sure. While we ponder that one, let's hear a Perry Proverb. A missing feature of this movie? Any real police presence a la Trag for Perry to quibble with. At best, we have Paul bickering with complicated suspects. So this little exchange between Perry and D.A. Reston comes as a moment of small delight. Perry can give better than he gets.
Well, Counselor, we meet again.
That we do.
I would prefer a fair fight, but I must admit it's reassuring to know that I have 40 million eyewitnesses at my disposal.
If you were going to kill someone, Mr. Reston, would you do it in front of 40 million people?
No, but then I'm not Robert Mckay.
That's right. You're not.
No, D.A. Reston, you're certainly not. Go back to the MASH unit you came from. Even in NYC, Perry reigns supreme. Now, let's grab a swig from the water cooler.
There is one thing I don't understand. Go on, Paul.
In our water cooler segment, Deleted Scenes, we consider the plot elements that didn't make the final cut. Offered with a sense of humor, here are 9 deleted scenes from the case of the Shooting Star. Number 1, the night the Robert Mckay movie appears and flops. Just a avalanche of audience members walking out holding their nose. Number 2, the entire stand-up routine of that Steve Carr guest. Flop sweat galore. Number 3, Perry and Della trading Paul Sr. stories while Paul Jr. looks on with his new girlfriend. Number 4, a montage of Eric Brenner churning down various requests for Kate Huntley's time. Man, did we ever find out what was up with Eric Brenner? Why, played by Ron Glass? Why was he in such a bad mood all the time? Number 5, the full 30 extra minutes that were required to make that duck Burgundy. That's just good television. Number 6, a date between Sharon and Dak. I'm sure that was fun. What are you up to today, honey? You know, today I was Dracula in a made-for-the-rubbish-heap budget horror picture. Oh, I was busy getting harassed by my creepy stepfather. Good times. Glad they cut that one. Number 7, Perry gets D.A. Michael Reston to contribute the rest of the cash for the law library. You know, if you lose the case, you got to pay up. And number 8, Perry ends up defending Sharon and getting her a favorable sentence after proving in court Steve Carr's creepitude. I'll be posting a YouTube link to the movie in the show notes. Take a look. Tell me what you think. Maybe you've already watched it. Was this good? Better or worse than The Notorious Nun, which I thought was quite enjoyable. As always, I'd love feedback about this particular episode of the podcast in general. Was there something about this episode you'd like to comment on or something you'd like to correct? You can email me at theperrypod@gmail.com. You'll find that link in the show notes. All Perry Pod episodes are available via Spotify, YouTube, and iTunes. Thanks again for joining me on this pod journey. This episode was a one-off. We'll be back soon with Season 2, Episode 27 of Perry Mason, The Case of the Deadly Toy. Join us, won't you? Until then, this is Jonathan Searcy saying, keep on walking that Park Avenue beat.